All right. Gaza War Day 345. No end in sight. You knew that I would be here tonight. I know you knew that I would be here tonight, and I know you knew why. But let's get a few things out of the way first. 31st anniversary of the Oslo Accord, apparently. I saw that item floating around over since I last saw you. Oslo Accord being the agreement through which the Palestinian Liberation Organization morphed into the Palestinian Authority and established some kind of authority, not a state, under Israeli auspices in the West Bank and Gaza, which led us more or less to where we are now. Um, a lot of the messages that I saw on the anniversary were of various Palestinian factions repudiating Oslo, rejecting Oslo, etc. Oslo, the word Oslo, the poor city, the poor Norwegian city, because to Palestine people, just the very word Oslo is synonymous with betrayal of the cause and failure, and basically giving up on resistance and getting nothing in return. That's what Oslo means. Meanwhile, it's just some city in Norway, and it has to carry that burden. Um, Big demonstrations in Israel, and the chant is "We want them alive, alive, alive." That's the chant, and the fact that they have to chant that. Imagine they have to chant that because they know that their government is not planning to return them in that condition. Story that came and went. Israel claimed to have infiltrated commandos into Syria, killing and capturing Iranian and Hezbollah soldiers. Dubious. I'm dubious. It came and went pretty fast. I haven't seen anything following up. Maybe you have. Maybe it's real. I'm dubious. But maybe somebody can show me something to what's the word? To dispel my doubts. There was another self-immolation, another protester named Matt Nelson, an American protester who self-immolated in front of the Israeli consulate in Boston. So I think I've seen that that's the fourth one so far. People are um, taking this extreme form of protest. They have, imagine having such lack of an outlet, such an inability to express the seriousness of the situation. Having the and it's true. I mean, the American debate about Kamala versus Trump is, or Harris versus Trump is so bizarre. It's so out of touch with um, the genocide that's going on that it has this it has this impossible. It just feels impossible to talk. I mean, this is a tanky therapy session and not a sit rep. I feel that I'm getting into, but the point is the disconnect is total, and one of the consequences is that these people, these people who feel this injustice are taking this extreme form of protest, um, and it's I don't know what to say about it beyond that. Um, but I do want, they do this so that people know that what they did. Aaron Bushnell did it so that because he wanted people to know and he wanted people to talk about it. So I don't want to not mention it. I don't want to not convey it. Matt Nelson is his name. I think he's still alive. Uh, I think so. Yeah, I don't know that I think he's still alive. I hope he's still alive. Yeah, local hospital for severe burns is the last thing I saw. And there's video of him describing, he said, "My name is Matt Nelson. I'm about to engage in an extreme act of protest. We are all culpable in the ongoing genocide in Gaza. We are slaves to capitalism and the military industrial complex. Most of us are too apathetic to care. The protest I'm engaged in is a call to our government to stop supplying Israel with the money and weapons it uses to imprison and murder innocent Palestinians, to pressure Israel to end the genocide in Gaza, and to support the ICC, the International Criminal Court, indictment of Benjamin Netanyahu and other members of the Israeli government. A democracy is supposed to serve the will of the people, not the interests of the wealthy. Take the power back, free Palestine. I mean, I don't see anything to disagree with in that entire message. So yeah, so that's, I mean, I don't know how to bridge this to Yemen, but in terms of, I don't know, the courage that it takes to do something like that, there's something. The Yemenis celebrated Aaron Bushnell. They carried photos of him at their million-man marches. I don't doubt that they'll do the same for Matt Nelson. But today's story of Yemen is about the ballistic missile, the hypersonic ballistic missile that struck a target around near Tel Aviv. I don't know if it was inside Tel Aviv, but it was very close, either miles, a few single-digit miles from Tel Aviv. Traveled 2,040 kilometers. Malik Houthi made a statement about it. He said this is part of the fifth phase of escalation. Escalation will continue while aggression and blockade persist. Notice that this is not the response to the Israeli squadron of bombers that set fire to the oil storage facility in Hodeidah months ago. They did not say it was the response. This is just another one of their attacks. They said it was a Mach 8 times the speed of sound. And the Israeli system that is, so you have the Iron Dome for rockets, you have the David Sling for missiles and drones, I think. And then you have for ballistic missiles like this, the idea is Iran maybe will launch ballistic missiles at Israel one day. And they have a system called the Arrow. And the Arrow apparently travels at lower than Mach 8. So the interceptor missiles is slower than the hypersonic ballistic missile that the Yemenis are using. So I think that's probably a problem. You can intercept something even if you're slower, but I suppose you have to know where the missile is going. I don't know too much about intercepting missiles, but you can imagine that it's rather difficult to do. It's been very difficult to do historically. I know the history of trying to intercept missiles, and it's been very difficult to do. The Scud missiles that Saddam Hussein launched from Iraq against Israel in the early 90s during the Gulf War, there was Patriot missiles meant to intercept them. The Patriot system is still in use in Israel. There's Patriot batteries. There's Patriot batteries in Ukraine intercepting Russian missiles. But they apparently had a really hard time with Scud missiles, and Scud missiles are dumb missiles. They go up and they come down. My understanding of Scud missiles and my understanding of these hypersonic missiles is that they can maneuver. So you have a missile that is going fast and can maneuver, which means it's very hard. I think intercepting that would be very hard. And I think they didn't do it. And I think it's theoretically possible. And I think the theory is that the Arrow system is supposed to do that. And I think there are missile defense, that can do that, but maybe not against hypersonic ballistic missiles or hypersonic missiles in general, because that's what the Russians say that their hypersonic missiles also, which can also maneuver these true hypersonics. I don't know, Kinzhal and Zircon, I think, are their names, and they maneuver as well. And there's evidence that the Iranians launched one of their hypersonic missiles at Israel in their previous round of attacks back in April. So probably worth pointing out that Hezbollah did their retaliation for Fuad Shokr, and they sent a whole bunch of rockets, Katyusha rockets, hundreds of rockets to engage the missile defense system. And then they snuck drones through to hit Unit 8200 headquarters. So missile rockets as decoys, drones as the main attack. That's different from Iran in April. Iran in April launched drones as the decoys and then faster missiles as the main attack. Now, this is different. Yemen, when they launched their drone, directly at Tel Aviv. It took a circuitous route. It traveled slowly, and it hit it hit its target in Tel Aviv. That was months back. And this is different from all of those. This one is just a missile, a single missile, no decoy, that came in and hit its target, just like that. Just went right through all of the defenses because it's too fast and maybe because it can maneuver. So each of these attacks by Israel's opponents has been different, technically different from the others. What they used as decoys is different. What they used as their main attack is different. And every time they do it, they're presumably learning more about the defenses. And that's what the Yemeni said. Ansarallah said, we've studied the enemy. We are studying the enemy the same as we studied the US. And if you remember, when a lot of the US naval assets left the Red Sea, the US naval personnel, they said the Houthis, as they called them, Ansarallah, have become really good at using an anti-ship ballistic missile. No one's ever done that before. And the US couldn't figure out what to do about it. And Ansarallah did it a bunch of times. They hit the US a bunch of times, and the US couldn't figure out how to exactly answer it. And the fact that they were doing that to ships, American ships, and the Americans couldn't quite deal with it in terms of intercepting these missiles tells me that this really could be something that a repeatable attack that Ansarallah could do. And they've said as much. They said this will Malik Houthi said this will continue while the aggression and blockade against Gaza persists. The media spokesman for Ansarallah said this is just the beginning. Abu Obaida, the spokesperson for the Qassam brigades, Hamas's armed wing, said he thinks it's a game changer. He said the nature of the weapon used in the operation, the type of target it struck, and other details that our brothers in Yemen have shared with us represent a qualitative shift that will have important impacts on the course and outcomes of the Al-Aqsa flood battle. So they also told Israel, you shouldn't rely on your missile defense system anymore. It's not going to work against us. So this is potentially a really big deal. This is potentially a really big deal because if they can do this the way that they did their attacks on the American ships, it means they can just reach out and touch Tel Aviv whenever they want, which really is a bit of a game changer, to use the term that's been going around. You probably also saw before this, Malik Houthi made his weekly speech. He talked a lot about the duty of the Muslims and the divisions of the Ummah. It was the occasion of the Prophet Muhammad's birthday. They were partying on the ship they took. The Yemenis entered the war as a support front by taking an Israeli ship. Remember the Galaxy Leader? So they held a party on the Galaxy Leader for the Prophet's birthday. I also read news that the USS Roosevelt carrier had withdrawn. The USS Lincoln and 12 other ships are still in the area, helping Israel out against defending them from missile attacks, which they did not successfully do today. There's also a new report that Yemenis I just saw this report that they took down a third MQ-9 Reaper drone, the third one of the week. I don't know how many they've taken down in total, but it's a lot now. So the Iraqi resistance also reports that they've hit Haifa again. So the Yemenis, the Iraqis are targeting Israeli cities, picking targets in those cities and hitting them. Now, all right, let's keep going to the oh, and the Iraqi resistance actually gave an interview to one of the I think it was a resistance media, Al Masira, it's called, and he said, uh, "What the support fronts are offering to Gaza is not the end. We have other cards to play." And I suppose a support front to round out our discussion of the support fronts, we should talk about Lebanon. The Israelis are hitting deeper and deeper into Lebanon, and the Lebanese Hezbollah are also hitting into Israel. They've got new targets in Israel. The Israelis did, in I think it was yesterday or the day before, 16 airstrikes on Lebanon in a single day. There was a source you probably saw. They claim that European sources told Al Mayadeen, one of the resistance media, that Unit 8200, so the Israeli equivalent of the National Security Agency or the NSA, so Signals Intelligence Unit, they suffered 22 dead and 74 wounded in that August Hezbollah attack that I was just talking about. And some people think that that might have included killing the commander. So the commander apparently tendered his resignation, but there was no picture of him. So maybe he's actually was among the 22 dead in this Hezbollah attack. They've added a new target, Beria Barracks, 12 kilometers deep. And this was the second time targeted, I guess, the other day. It houses Patriot and Iron Dome batteries, as well as lots of rockets. So Lebanon is very active, more active than they've ever been. So this is just another like dialing up, dialing up. But Yemen, the word qualitative is possibly used too much, but Yemen, a lot of people are calling it a qualitatively different operation. So this is going to be a major this could be a major change to the way the war proceeds because Yemen's strikes on, well, the drone strike on Tel Aviv was months ago, but they have periodically hit a lot, I think, and maybe even Haifa. But to hit Tel Aviv with a hypersonic missile, um, yeah, it's a big deal. So we'll see what happens. Obviously, Israel will maybe send another slow squadron of F-35s or F-22s, or the Americans will, and they'll do some bombing in Hodeidah. Um, Presumably, that's not really gonna be a surprise to anybody when that happens. But I guess we'll see what they do there too. Okay, so West Bank. We should talk about the West Bank. You may have seen a story and photos of the Israeli settlers poisoning a herd of goats. So good on you, Israel. You are really, getting out there and showing the martial courage worthy of the state of Israel, poisoning a herd of goats. I guess this is to be fair, what the Bible teaches in terms of Amalek. You're supposed to wipe out women and children and domestic animals as well. So poisoning goats in the West Bank. There's fighting in Nablus still. There's fighting in Tubas. There was a big bombing in Tubas. The Israelis bombed a series of targets in Tubas. There was also a complex ambush in Tubas. The Tubas armed factions, they said that the Palestinian security services would not be spared. And there has been some clashing in Jenin as well. The Jenin resistance had a firefight with Palestinian Authority forces who were trying to arrest a fighter. They also opened fire apparently today on the Palestinian Authority headquarters. Um, there were Tulkarm news of the Israelis capturing medical crews, again, showcasing their incredible martial qualities and courage, and airstrikes on Tulkarm as well. That's what we can say for the West Bank. How about Gaza? So Gaza, there are new school massacres. I had this memory. I was thinking back to a year ago when Israel was methodically destroying bakeries. You guys remember the bakery massacres? They were destroying bakeries. This was before they started targeting hospitals, and we were wondering about bakeries. So this was before school massacres, flower massacres, tent massacres, and hospital massacres. They had bakery massacres, and they also had massacres at churches. They were killing people at like Christian churches. But I guess all of those targets were destroyed. So now it's tent massacres. There is, you may have seen on, not on YouTube, but you may have seen on X and other sites that John Elmer's resistance report for Electronic Intifada about a crashed Israeli helicopter and casualties there. There's an actual photo. I mean, I'm not verifying the photo, but I did see a photo of the crashed Israeli helicopter. So whether it was shot down or it just crashed, whether I don't know, but there's definitely a crashed. I've seen multiple pieces of evidence of an actual crashed Israeli helicopter. An IED in Shujaiya, fighting in Shujaiya neighborhood of Gaza City. There was a Merkava 4 hit with 2 RPGs in Rafah City. Soraya Al-Quds reports that. Soraya Al-Quds showed a video of that. I think I saw a video of that. It could be a different report, but I think I saw a video of a Merkava 4 being hit with RPGs in Rafah City just now, just before I started recording. You may have seen Yahya Sinwar, the commander of Hamas right now, or the leader of Hamas right now. He wrote a message of thanks to Nasrallah, Hassan Nasrallah, the Secretary General of Hezbollah. Nasrallah had written a message commemorating Ismail Haniyeh, the martyr who was killed in the leader of the political bureau of Hamas, who was killed in Iran, and Iran still has not done their response. So we're still waiting for that response, even as Yemen hits with its ballistic missile today. And in fact, I don't know what to make of this message. I don't know what's going on exactly. I suspect there's a lot more going on in terms of the timing and than just what's in the text itself. I think these are messages that will be maybe in the future we'll know what really is behind them. But it reads like a message of thanks and we're not going to stray from our goals of liberation. That's basically what he says. Osama Hamdan, who's a spokesperson for Hamas, actually says that Yahya Sinwar will soon send a direct message to the world. And one of the important messages he wanted to say was that Yahya Sinwar and all the leaders were prepared for martyrdom 1,000 times over, was his wording. And that makes sense to say, because a lot of Israelis and their ilk, like Lindsay something, some American politician was saying, well, we're going to kill you. We're going to kill you, Yahya Sinwar. Like, these guys are about martyrdom. It's not it's how they grew up. They grew up fighting their friend. Many of their friends were killed. They expect that that's how they're going to die. So it's not a big threat that the Americans are making to kill Yahya Sinwar. But another important quote from Osama Hamdan was, he says, the resistance's ability to continue is high and will persist. There are martyrs and sacrifices, but on the other hand, there has been an accumulation of experience and the recruitment of new generations into the resistance, and we will even become more creative in the coming days, he said. He also said that injuries in particular are lower than you would expect for a conflict of this kind. There's another interesting note, and I don't think I've seen this before, but Osama Hamdan told the media that the Palestinian factions are meeting in Cairo in Egypt on Monday, so tomorrow, some of you are already in Monday, today, to discuss the day after and the day after as a Palestinian matter. Remember that Hamas and all the Palestinian factions have insisted all along that the day after is a strictly Palestinian matter. Who governs Gaza? Palestinian matter. How they govern Gaza? Palestinian matter. What their economic model is? Palestinian matter. None of Israel's business. No, Israel needs to withdraw, and that's it. And the Americans are not going to pick the Dayton forces or the Palestinian Authority or the multinational force to monitor the crossings. Nothing. The day after in Gaza is a Palestinian matter, period. So they're going to go and discuss that on Monday, which is great. It's going to be interesting to see what comes out of that. The only other thing in Gaza was the Interior Ministry warning people not to give info to aid organizations over the phone because that's the Interior Ministry. Gaza Interior Ministry warned people that that is how Israel kills people. They target people by impersonating aid organizations over the phone, calling people and asking them for their details and then targeting and killing them. There's another thing that happened with polio. So apparently the polio vaccination campaign is basically over. And this is like one of the things that I can't wrap my head around in terms of how the world works. So the world rose and said, we shall not let these children die of polio, and then enacted this vaccination campaign so that Israel can go back to killing these children with bombs and starvation. Yeah. So that's how the world works, apparently. I didn't think that that's how the world worked. I didn't think that this campaign was that anything was going to happen. I thought polio was going to become part of the story of the genocide, and more fool me, I guess. I guess the world can tolerate children being killed in mass quantities uh, by Israel's bombs, but not by polio. I'm uh, I'm not completely unaware that there are public health and Israelis not wanting to get polio reasons for this vaccination campaign to be allowed to go ahead. Um, so all right, where does that leave us? I don't know. I think that leaves us on the edge of some major things. I think this ballistic missile is going to prove to be a major development. And if they really do start hitting Tel Aviv the way they hit US naval ships in and around the Red Sea, uh yeah, I mean there's gonna have to be some major adaptations in Israeli society to getting hit by ballistic missiles periodically. And I mean, it's interesting. I remember when they said they had one. Do you guys remember? I reported it on a sit rep. I remember when they said um, and they were testing a hypersonic ballistic missile. They said that. And they showed their Palestine missile. They've showed a bunch of missiles that they had. They showed the launches. But the time between them saying they had it and then them using it was actually not that long. And and then you think of the other things they've been talking about them preparing, like their 400,000 man army. And you wonder, you know, they're not they're probably not training these guys to sit around and do nothing. So, yeah, this as this war goes on, the number of variables expands and the number of wild card events like today um, also increases. So who knows? Who knows where things will go? But I will be here, and as we approach day 365, just 20 days from now, I bet there'll be, yeah, I bet the world will be a different place even then than it is now. So I will be here to report it to you guys. Um, If you hang in there, I will. And like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.